topical issue, African Anthropology of Culture on Gender. The other time I talked of African Anthropology of Culture on marriage. I know you can remember. So today we are going to talk about gender. There is a difference between gender and sex. Sex is either being male or female. Gender is about the roles, the activities, the expectations of the society. So that's the difference. You may attend to female gender objectives when you are male. And you may attend to male gender objectives when you are female. So there is the difference between the two, sex and gender. So today we're going to talk about gender objectives in the African society. In the African society, there was a straight cut expectation of people of different genders. We had the male gender and the female gender expectations. From when a child was young, a child was taught to adapt to certain characteristics, certain cultures, certain behaviors that will make him or her serve in that gender role. For instance, the girls were taught how to be good at washing, fetching water, cooking, and you had to be hardworking. The man, on the other side, when you are a young boy, you will assist in fetching water and doing these other things. But immediately you approached circumcision, things changed. You had to abandon all those other things. You started staying with now young men of that age. You went hunting. You did wrestling. And you did some practices in combat with false weapons, archery, how to use a spear, how to use a shield, because you are being trained for a different role. And then comes circumcision. For the cultures that circumcised both, a circumcised man was expected to change his behavior and adapt to certain characteristics. He will now not freely associate with women. He will not do the jobs that women do. Expected a certain level of respect from all the societies, groups, learned to be a warrior, and learned to exercise authority over the family. So the males were the ones who were exercising the authority over the family. A woman, in some cultures where women got circumcised, it was time that one was getting ready for marriage. You learned to do house chores properly and the activities that go with family life. In the African culture, one was taken care of throughout in life. Your elder sisters will act in place of the mother when the mother was not there. The aunts would do the same. And the male gender, the elder men, young men, would take the role partially of what a father does when the father was out. And that is how the community worked. When a man reached a certain age, then now you are encouraged to go build a small hut detached from your family. You are learning to be a grown-up. But the woman would stay with the family until when a suitor came for her. Then she would go and take different roles. Now in the family that she went to, roles of a wife. And a man, after a certain age, you are expected to go approach some family for a wife, and then you take the objectives of the male gender in your family. This included protecting the family, protecting the cattle kraal because you had to have cattle. For the young men, they would go raiding, but when you are married, it was rare that you would accompany the raiders, because once you got married and started having children, you are considered to be a junior elder. But for those who had gotten circumcised, this was the time to go for raids. They would go to other tribes and raid cattle. And in the process of raiding cattle, sometimes they would also raid women. And now, why would people raid women and cattle? The African custom at that time was such that a woman could be married any place because she tended to bear children that would carry the blood of the clan that she was in and where she came from. So if she was raided from a place and she got married to this family, she would have children who would carry the blood of this family. And what would happen? The women were more loyal to where their children were, where their blood was. The bloodline now belonged to this clan. In the African society, women played a very important purpose. One, they were the ones that were to give birth to the warriors and the girls so that the family could be big. So African culture valued women who would give birth. And when they gave birth, the boys would belong to that society, the girls would belong to that society. Girls were considered to be of value because when they got married, if it was a normal general marriage, there was a lot of wealth that would come. Cattle. If you go to the elder people in the Kenyan society, there are times when you find an elder comes and the sister is telling him, you know, if it were not for my dowry, you would not have gone to school, though I didn't go to school. Because they paid dowry for her, and because their first priority during that time was to build up the boy child. She got married to have children, and the dowry that she gave would be used by the brother to marry a wife or to go to school. That is when the school time came. But in the past, when there were no schools, it was he would get that dowry mixed with what he had raided and acquire a wife elsewhere. The African woman was taught not to be possessive of the husband, because the society that time did not need a possessive woman. Women were to give birth, to enlarge the society, give the society women who would do gender roles in the community, and warriors who would protect the family. So you are taught from childhood, a man is not supposed to be owned by one woman. And a woman sometimes would be told by the husband, I think our farm has become a bit large, and we need somebody to help with the work. Can you go and get me another woman who can also be able to help? So you would go as a woman to search for a woman of your choice. And women liked it that way, because if you searched for your choice, she would always be obedient to you. You were like a matron, the first wife. And after some time, he will still ask for the same. Sometimes people searched for their sisters, because it was not wrong for somebody to marry the sisters. They are not of the same blood. So sometimes others will even search for their sisters or their cousins, and they bring them there. And those women who were captured in raids would also be brought there, but they were of a lower status than you from the tribe. So the first wife, who was the matron, would organize certain things. For instance, the work schedule of the family, the expansion of land purchase, because that time people did not have title deeds. It was a place where the clan owns, and how much you could dig in different parcels within that zone that the tribe owned. So the more wives you had, the more children you had, the more you would dig, the more you would harvest. She was to work out the schedule of farming. She had to make the schedule of wife duties. It was very interesting. I had never gotten, because the society we were born in was when our grandmothers had become Christians. They would not talk of the real details, but there was a time when I met some lady. You know, elder men and elder women talk anything freely. So she was telling me how women used to arrange the wifely duties, because maybe you are 7 wives, maybe you are 10 wives. So the elder was the one who was to choose the duty. If it's her duty, if she would give herself more days, or if she was more tired, she would give the others more days. And I was told the arrangement was, because that time people used to use dried cow dung to roast potatoes or roast maize. The fire is cool, it roasts nicely, it's not like firewood. And cow dung had an insecticide-like effect on mosquitoes and other things. So the man would have his hut, and the children, all the children, used to feed in the man's hut. If you are 10 wives, 11 wives, 12 wives, the more women you got married, the more status you had in the community. If you stuck to one wife, in fact, they used to say you are a poor man, a man who cannot manage a family, only 1 or 2 wives. Can you be able to talk before men? So the more wives you had, the more recognized you were. And there was this jealousy thing. So they feared that some women would poison other women's children, because the boy child was favored, and sometimes some women may have sons and others have daughters only. So to avoid that, the husband used to call all the children who have not matured. When you reached a certain level, there was a way you were served food. But all the small children would go to the husband's house, and then each woman would cook food, her own choice, and it's all brought to the husband's hut, and the children share from one plate. If it was meat you have cooked, you cook meat and it's put in one pot, and if it is the stiff porridge or ugali that we eat, it was also put in one place. So the children would wash their hands in one bowl. They would each pick from that one pot and dip into that soup. They had been taught not to grab more than others will eat, so you sample from each mother. So if there are 12, the husband and the children sample from 12 different dishes that have come for lunch or have come for supper, so that the children are not bewitched or they are not poisoned. And these children of that age will not sleep with their mother. They would go to the grandmother's hut where they were told good stories, moral stories about the society, their lineage, how to live well as men and women of that community, and that's where they slept. But then the women did not live in the man's quarters. Each woman had her own hut. So it was the matron's duty to give orders on who would attend to the husband. And what she used to do, she would order somebody. So that morning, if you have ordered to go and be with the husband, you would wake up in the morning and clean the compound, sweep the compound, prepare everything, make everything is okay. Go for water for the husband's house, because the husband had the children, the water to drink, the water to do most of the things there. You would fetch that. As the others are bringing to their homes, you bring and you take to the heart of the man. So the man knew who was on duty. The children would not know who was on duty. And then in the evening, when the fire was being lit for the roasting of the potatoes, roasting of the maize, roasting of these small things, as the father talked to the children before they were sent to the grandmother, you would light that fire. If you lit that fire, the husband would know you are the one on duty. But it was not a type of thing that we have today. You were supposed to be seen like you are distant. So you would wait until all the children had slept. Maybe 12, maybe 1 in the morning. Sneak for your duties, and before 5, you are out, you are in your hut. So when the children woke up, they found you in your hut. They knew the mothers stay alone, the father stay alone. But it was the grandmothers who gave the children the other details, because they could talk naughty. And now the children learned family life from the grandmother, the naughty woman of the family. And what happened to the boys when they grew of a certain age? They became warriors, they got married. And they were now to be under the internship of elders. This is how you organize your family. This is how you settle disputes in the society. This is how you handle issues with the neighboring tribes. This is how the war rituals. In case of war, in case you are fighting and you kill a person, because killing a person had repercussions. In wars, you would kill people, but then their spirits would haunt you. So after war, what do? How are you supposed to treat yourself so that those spirits don't haunt you? How were you supposed to handle issues when different women have quarreled, when the children have quarreled, when your younger brothers or other elders have quarreled? Those things were taught by the elders. And from that, from your behavior and everything that you had, the raids that people had, the cattle that you had your status. In every man's place, if you are married, the first thing that women had to learn, you are to be good at digging the garden, fetching water, taking care of the house duties. But you were also to be good in brewing beer. So our societies used to take beer. Don't be cheated that there was no beer. You would brew either moonlight whiskey, they call it changa, or brew a porridge like alcohol content, they call busa. And a woman would brew different women. And the brew was not supposed to ripen at the same time. So you know in 4 days' time, so and so's place, the porridge like alcohol, busa, is ripe for drinking. The elders will come. And when you came, you are an elder, a woman who had given birth to children that were almost of marriageable age, was now allowed to drink with the husband. When you are a young woman, you are not supposed to drink. But when your children are almost reaching circumcision age or have been circumcised, be it girls, be it boys, for those who used to circumcise both genders, now you had permission to drink. And what used to happen, the husband would come and put his stool, sit down. There used to be a straw for drinking from the pot. And the wives would sit on the floor beside him and put their straws. And the other man would come and sit on his stool, and his wives would sit beside him. Those who had reached the drinking age, and they would drink and get back to the homes because the other affairs were taken care of by the younger women and the elder daughters. So beer was an important aspect in the African custom. You had to know how to brew good beer, and it used to go round the village. But there were times when gender aspects would change. For instance, if a girl went and got married and could not give birth, they said she was barren. And women who could not get children sometimes would get suicidal, and it was a problem for a member of the family to commit suicide because the spirit of suicide would run through the family. So what would they do for such a woman? The husband has refused you because you are barren, you can't get the children. And your family does not want problems of suicide and other things arising in the family. They would refund the dowry, get you back, and now the father and the elders of that family would inaugurate you into being a man. You are now a son of the family. And you'll be given your patch of land. And now you are given dowry. Just like your brothers were given dowry. You could not go to raid. And now you are allowed to go and marry a wife. You will approach a family or a lady who you would marry and pay dowry, and she would come to your house as your wife. This wife now would bear children with your brothers, your uncles, or if you didn't want close people having children with her, then you would ask her to move with other men from other places. But the children she got were your children. So you had a family there. So now you are a man in that family. You see, the gender role has changed. The other time you had to learn women gender. Now you are a man. So in the male participation of the family, you are included because now you permanently belong to the family. You will never go to another place. So all these children, in most cases, many women preferred them to be attending to these duties with the brothers, the uncles, and whatever. So she was a wife for the community. And the children belonged to this woman. And they will be given every right that the children of a family were to have. And the male would get married too. Now, if your father was an older man whose blood was still hot in the veins, they would sometimes go marrying up to children, to women your children's age. Because if somebody was old and he had cattle, he would marry. So now, because of the inability to take care of the responsibilities, the younger mothers, the women who are your age, you would also help your father partake to the responsibility of husbandship. But it was not open. So when the women started moving out and they were young, the father would complain, the sons of the family are not taking responsibility of their mothers. Your elder mothers and everybody were to provide food and all that. But for these ones, the young ones, you provide food and you also provide the other services. So that was the African cultural anthropological system in the African society during that time. I think I will stop there. We shall talk about other things as we move on. Thank you. That's my take.